As we near the final third of the regular season, the Texas Rangers front office has shoved. Meanwhile, Houston's front office is down to their last few chips and hoping to catch a familiar ace on the river. We'll talk about it next on episode 34 of Stone Cold Stros, and it starts right now.
The Houston Astros, world champions!
Welcome into Stone Cold Stros. I'm Brandon Strange. I'm joined by senior content contributor Charlie Palillo. Follow him on Twitter at Palillo and read his weekly column on sportsmap.com. Alongside him is sportsmap.com editor Josh Jordan. Follow him on the platform that was formerly called Twitter at JoshJordan975. Be sure to hit like on this video. Subscribe on the channel if you haven't already. The full version of this podcast is available in audio form right now at places like Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your pods. One less this week, I think, with the dissolvement of Stitcher, and all those links are in our description. And when you're not watching or listening to SportsMap, be sure to listen to our sister platform, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 FM on your radio dial. Charlie, it's episode 34. We like to shout out our players with those corresponding numbers. Hey, it's Houston, baby. So there's a lot of 34s that are known for here. Earl Campbell, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Alvin's own Nolan Ryan. I think I know where you're going. Cesar Geronimo, right?
Well, Nolan, of course, as revered an athlete as this city or maybe any other city has had. 7 no-hitters, all the one-hitters, all the strikeouts. You know, Nolan Ryan holds the all-time walks issued record by a greater percentage than he holds the all-time strikeouts issue. But I will go Cesar Geronimo, who was with the Astros for 3 years and then was part of the ill-fated Joe Morgan trade with the Reds. And Geronimo became a 4-time Gold Glove winning center fielder and a mainstay on those big red machine teams of the 70s.
Well, shout out to the Chief. Guys, we got to get right into it. A lot of big news, big trades from over the weekend. Texas making moves like we teased in the open. Rangers trade for Max Scherzer, Jordan Montgomery. That's in addition to the trade they already made in Aroldis Chapman. They're supposedly not done. Does the moves that the Texas Rangers have made make them favorite not just in the division, but and maybe in the AL at large?
I don't think they're the clear favorite in the entire American League with the Rays and Orioles to be accounted for. And let's see what the Astros can do to upgrade and if they have lineup stability now with health and Fromber gets back on the beam and so forth. But to follow your poker lead, I mean, the Rangers are playing no limit with what they are going after. And because their farm system is tremendous, the Astros farm system is terrible in the pool of 30 major league franchises. The Rangers have been able to be uber aggressive, reel in some serious fish, and not gut their farm system in the process. You know, in getting Scherzer, they gave up one of their top 5 prospects. They didn't give up any of their top 10 prospects in netting Montgomery and the relief pitcher Stratton from the Cardinals. So, you know, there are the circles of life and the cycles of life. As the Astros built this dynasty, you know, it was on the back of a number of lousy years and high draft choices and cultivating a terrific farm system. Well, here we are now in the midst of this Astros dynasty. The Rangers have been garbage for the last 6 years, and over that time, they built up their farm system. And so the Rangers have 6-7 prospects still, better than any single prospect in the Astros system. Maybe someday we look back and Drew Gilbert's better than all of them, but in terms of asset value, commodities you can package to trade, the Astros can get only blown away by the Rangers right now. It assures nothing. We see how Scherzer and Montgomery pitch, but it nets out. The Rangers are the favorite over the Astros unless there's an Astro thunderbolt by 5 p.m. Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, the Astros are feeling the hit from the punishment from the sign stealing scandal where they don't have these extra picks to include in these trade packages. You know, player development doesn't help the Astros in this circumstance. It's just however these guys are ranked according to most of the experts across the league. So they're in a tricky position. I like what the Rangers did for them. They needed pitching. They needed it bad. 17th in team ERA in the majors. You know, Astros are much better. You know, obviously they have been most of the year. They're at 5th right now. So that helps them for sure. You know, we'll see with Eovaldi if he's done for the year or if he's going to come back. But they got what they needed. The Astros also got what they needed. I love the Kendall Graveman addition. They needed some bullpen help. We all know that. He's under control for another season. So when you see the Neris, Stanek, Maton, possibly one of them walk, you're still going to have Graveman to go with Presley and Abreu. So I like that move. It's only $8 million. So, it's not going to kill you next year with the salary cap. So we'll see. I would like to see the Astros go after some pitching, but the Rangers, man, they're going all in. It's going to be a battle till the end of the season.
If no further moves were made after Sunday afternoon, the Astros could still win the American League West. It's not like you spit the bit, fold, concede, anything like that. Right? You start the new week within one game of them. The Astros win one of the 3 games in the remaining Astros-Rangers series up in Arlington, just starting Labor Day. The Astros win the season series, and the tiebreaker should have come down to that. But when you look top to bottom, and with the Astros, particularly in the starting rotation, with a bunch of question marks, the Rangers, I think you netted out. Josh mentioned Eovaldi. It's going to be no surprise. It's a forearm thing. He's had 2 Tommy Johns. That Nathan Eovaldi, who's a top 3 Cy Young guy at this point in the season, that he's done. But I think Scherzer's healthy, pitches to relative expectation, not 5 years ago, Mad Max, but just a good starter. Jordan Montgomery's been good for multiple years and his playoff race tested both as a Yankee and as a Cardinal. I think for the Rangers, Scherzer and Montgomery, that tandem, having them both, is better without Eovaldi than having Eovaldi and not having added 2 other guys to their rotation. And the other big question with the Rangers now is their catcher, Jonah Heim. Best catcher in the American League this year. You might argue for Adley Rutschman, but you add it all up, it's advantage Heim, who brings thump and the analytics stuff. By far the best pitch framer in the majors this season, stealing strikes on pitches that are actually out of the strike zone. That could be a big, big blow to that Rangers pitching staff. Heim injured his wrist on a swing against a Fromber curveball here last week. If that turns out to be a season-ending type thing, or even 4 to 6 weeks as opposed to just 2 or 3 weeks, huge blow for the Rangers. So do they throw in pursuing another catcher by 5 p.m. our time Tuesday?
If Rangers get Eovaldi back, though, that rotation does look scary. And speaking of Graveman, I've seen some debate on whether the Astros overpaid for Kendall Graveman. And so, yes, Corey Lee was their 5th best prospect in the Astros farm system, but it's a depleted farm system. And the truth is, Corey Lee got leapfrogged in the depth chart by a single A player fairly quickly. So if your argument is the Astros should pass on Graveman to hold their future backup catcher, I think that's silly. And so after the Scherzer deal happened, the rumor mill got swirling about how Houston was looking to counterpunch with the Justin Verlander move. The hang-up seemed to be that, for multiple sources, that vesting option, that 3rd year was the hang-up there. And then Dana Brown starts changing his tune publicly to Houston's no longer in the market for a starting pitcher. And so I've seen a lot of speculation online and some conjecture of whether this is posturing on Dana Brown's part. So my question is to whom? Like, do you guys think, Dusty? I know Dusty and Dana said, well, Urquidy's come back, so we're okay. I don't think anyone's buying that. So is Dana posturing, or is he hedging expectations because they may not be able to bring in a Justin Verlander?
I think he's feeling his way along a little bit. First time in the saddle as a general manager as the trade deadline approaches, and he's aware of the moves that the Rangers have made and that a whole bunch of other teams are going to make. But again, tied into poker, he's playing such a short stack in terms of prospects that he could try to package for a trade, right? The Verlander situation is unique. If Verlander says, I'll only go to the Astros, and if he waves that no trade clause to go to the Dodgers, then the Mets decide how much are we willing to pay down for what package of prospects the Astros can put together, which pales into comparison to what a whole bunch of other teams would offer for Verlander. But if Verlander plays poker himself and says, nope, I'll only go to the Astros. So you have a lot of variables here. I like that Dana Brown has been generally forthright and forthcoming and open, from publicly saying, hey, Dusty, why aren't you playing Yiner more? To other moves along the way, other than injuries, because the Astros just, their DNA is to futz around and discussing the true status of injured players. So maybe Dana, as we get down to trade deadline time, and he's sweating a little bit because he hasn't been able to make that huge move, he's realizing that part of a general manager's gig is to speak with forked tongue. And like the old boxing promoter Bob Arum once said, oh, the other day I was lying. Now I'm telling the truth.
Well, I think Dana's smart not to get people's hopes up, especially in the case of Verlander, because as you said, it sounds like that third-year vesting option is what's holding it up. And what is that? That's money that Jim Crane probably doesn't want to spend. You don't want to make your owner look bad that he doesn't want to pay the money for that deal. And then if we look at this season too, why are they kind of in this trouble? They signed an older guy in Abreu. That didn't work out, at least so far. They gave Michael Brantley that money, an older guy with injury issues. And you look at Verlander, what's Verlander? He's an older guy, a year or two off Tommy John surgery. So I get it. There is some stuff to be concerned about there. I would like to see them go do the deal, but if they don't, please go get another starting pitcher. Before I've mentioned Michael Lorenzen, I mentioned Jordan Montgomery last week as somebody, but now the Rangers have already taken him off the board. But I feel like they got to get another arm. I don't think Belak's that guy. You saw in that Rays game, that game was over in the first inning, at least as far as I was concerned. I know there were some errors and it wasn't all his fault and he pitched better, but I don't trust him going forward. He's not a guy that I think can really get it done in high leverage, important games as the season comes to a close.
Belak should not make another start. Ideally, the starter you acquire, unless he pitched Monday or Tuesday, he should be making that start at the Yankees on Friday. Brandon Belak's been extremely fortunate to have his ERA below 4. Part of pitching is working around an error here or there. And, you have an error, Abreu with a terrible error over the weekend, but then you give up a hit and a 3-run homer. They can have all the unearned runs, but it's still a failure on the pitcher's part. But to tie it up on Dana Brown, because the Astros farm system is terrible, relative to the other 29 franchises at this point, he just does not have the weapons in his arsenal to package to go get a real impact guy. That's one thing. But if he was telling the truth that the Astros are, we're out of the market now for a starting pitcher, that's just silly, because you don't play a pat hand when it does not appear to be strong enough. If it's tempering expectations, we're kind of admitting we just don't have enough to go to make a trade. But if you are not shopping the B tier guys, then that would be a failure on Dana Brown's part.
And my guess, if Dana Brown is posturing that the jig's going to be up as soon as he calls and says he's asking about your starting pitching, that's going to be it for part 1 of Stone Cold Stros. To listen to this full podcast, it's up right now wherever you listen to your podcast. So check your favorite podcast provider. And to watch the rest of this conversation on YouTube, check out the Stone Cold Stros playlist. We'll be releasing those videos very shortly. And as always, go Stros.